Yes, Father.
Yes,
So when
Father.
it stops, we'll come back. Don't go. Come back. Come back. Don't go.
Thursday,
Come
no,
back.
Father.
Come
Thursday.
back. Come back. So we were discussing about Heidegger's, philosophy, and I said the Heidegger is understood in two ways. One as an existential philosopher. Why? Because some of the themes discussed by Heidegger are very relevant and very common in the existential philosophy, and we have seen existential philosophy. At the same time, I said Heidegger belongs to the school of phenomenology. He is a disciple of Husserl and he follows the phenomenological method to understand the question of being. And therefore, he goes deeper into the question of being. Also, I said how Heidegger's ontology is different from the traditional ontology. Traditional ontology was talking about being, this being or that being. Traditional ontology was making a distinction between finite being and infinite being. Whereas Heidegger's being ontology is called as what? Heidegger's ontology is called as what?
Fundamental ontology.
Fundamental
Fundamental
ontology.
ontology.
It goes to the roots of being. And therefore, we have seen the various dimensions of being. The being in the world, being for others, being for death, being in anxiety, varieties of aspects of being we have seen. So, like that, Heidegger is trying to discover what being is. And the best way to understand being, as I said, is none other than human being, what he calls it as Dasein. On various aspects of Dasein we have seen. So having said all this, we are at the, we are trying to wind up, conclude the philosophy of Heidegger. As I said, it is a very brief introduction. It's not much, but for our introduction, it's a brief. We must be very clear. So Heidegger, what was the primary concern of Heidegger? Being. Has he succeeded in telling us something about being? Yes, he has given us certain aspects of being. But for Heidegger, we must keep in mind, we cannot completely have a grip over being. We cannot completely comprehend being. The word meaning completely, no. Because according to Heidegger, we cannot define being. We cannot define, because definition means we are sure about certain things. For Heidegger, being escapes all sorts of definitions. Being escapes all sorts of full understanding. Being is a reality which is much beyond me. Therefore, very often Heidegger is also called as a sort of a mystic. Why? Because he is mystic, because we cannot understand the reality fully. We cannot grasp the reality fully. We cannot totally understand everything. We cannot understand everything totally. So being is something which escapes all our intellect, knowledge. He also said that, we cannot approach being from the perspective of God. So he's keeping purposely the question of God out of the question of being. And we have seen earlier also, if at all God exists for him, he is not being with capital B. If at all God exists, he is not being with capital B. He is being with small b. He is one of the beings. If at all God exists, he is not the being, he is one of the beings, like any other being. So these are some of the key aspects of the fundamental ontology of Martin Heidegger, or key aspects of his philosophy. So we will have to make a critical analysis of this philosophy of Heidegger. So certain positive aspects of the philosophy of this great thinker. First of all, as I said, he has gone a little away from the traditional thinking. He is helping us to go deeper into the reality of being. Something good, something nice. He's helping us to go deeper into the question of being. Not taking just the traditional approach, but deeper into the question of being. Also, Heidegger is helping us to understand that our being is in the world, is our being in the world. Heidegger also is helping us. our being in the world is realistic, is bringing us to the real life. He is not an ideal thinker. He is calling us to be in the world, to be realistic. Another expression which I have not mentioned, which you all of us must retain, is that he uses an expression called the facticity of human existence. Facticity. Note down that expression coming from Heidegger. Facticity. F-A-C-T I, facti, C-I-T-Y, facticity, from the root fact. So he says that we live in a factual world, real world. We live in a factual or real world. We don't live in an ideal world. Facticity, another expression which is found very much in the writings of Martin Heidegger. Facticity. So we live in a factual world. Heidegger also has, positively contributed by saying that in order to understand being, we should go not only in one form of language, spoken language, written language is one form of language. There are other forms of language to understand being. What are the other forms of language? Other forms of
Art,
language?
Gestures,
music,
Art,
arts,
art,
music,
gestures,
music,
culture,
then what is the
poetry,
literary, poetry,
culture,
culture,
Sign and symbol.
culture,
Sign and symbol.
science.
sign, symbol, all these are also, so particularly he highlights, underlines, underscores the
Poetry.
aspect of poetry in the question of the understanding of being. So being is something which is beyond us. We cannot completely capture being. We can get some glimpses of being. That means we get some impressions of being. So you see, his language is more mystical, more profound, more deep. It's more mystical. Therefore, Heidegger, as I said, is one of the most read philosophers in the world even today. If you make a scale of philosophy, Heidegger would stand on the top even today. You go to any part of the world, you go to any university in the world, any part of the world, any university in the world, you can see that Heidegger is one of the most popular philosophers. What we have, what I have said is only an iota, only a dot of Heidegger, just a general introduction. The more you read, the more he is, helping us to go more and more into the reality of human existence. So these are some of the positive aspects of the philosophical dimension or philosophy of Martin Heidegger. Some of the not so positive aspects or some of the questionable aspects, some of the not so positive or questionable aspects is that Heidegger says, for example, I am thrown into the world. One day I come into the world. Yesterday I made a mention of it. I am thrown into the world. And one day I leave the world. I say goodbye to the world. One day I come into the world. And one day I say goodbye to the world. I am thrown into the world. And one day I exit. I take an exit. So if you ask the Heidegger the question, where are you coming from? He says, I am not interested. Where do you go after your exit? Once you finish your existence, where do you go? He says, I don't know. I'm not interested. Death is the end point of my life. Death is the culminating aspect of my life. Death is the end point, the culmination point of my existence. But as human beings, I and you are also interested in the question, where do we come from? Where do we go? Why do we live into this world? Why should we make the world very meaningful living? Why should I live as a good person in this world? You see, those are important questions. My existence in the world, it becomes meaningful when somebody says you come from some place or somewhere, and you go somewhere after the end of your life. So that is important for us, and my life is accordingly, organized that way. So we in our Christianity, we know, in our Christianity, we understand that our life is not our own. Our scriptures tell us, for example, that even before I was born, God had a vision for me. Even before I was in my mother's womb, God had a plan for my life. So I come into the world with a plan of God. And according to that plan, I live into this world. And when I exit from the world, I will go back once again to the place where I come from, into the bosom of the Father. And there I will be able to see whether I have lived a responsible life. So that gives meaning to my life. That gives a direction to my life. It sets a road map to my life. If I say I come from nowhere and I go nowhere, then I don't know what. What is the meaning of all this? You understand me? Do you understand what I'm talking?
Yes.
Yes, Father.
Yes. So you see, so Heidegger's philosophy in a certain way is telling us we don't have a road map. We don't have a GPS. Today everybody is talking about GPS. When you have a GPS, you are very clear where you are going, why you should go there, how you should go. So you need a GPS of life, and that we don't see much in the philosophy of Heidegger. That is the criticism leveled by some philosophers for Heidegger. Second, Heidegger says, we have seen yesterday, that we are born to die. We are born to die. We are dying. We are born to die. It is true, we all die. We have to die. Nobody can say, I don't want to die. Everybody dies. Who is that fellow? Everybody dies. So, but we are not made for death. Death is an important aspect of all existence, but we are not made for death. Philosophers argue saying that we are made for life. We are made for life. There was another philosopher during the time of Heidegger who was also a disciple of Edmund Husserl. Her name is Edith Stein. Note down, Edith Stein. Edith, Edith Stein, Stein, Edith Stein. Later on, she was also a Jewish philosopher. She becomes a Christian, she becomes Catholic, she becomes a religious nun, a Carmelite nun, and finally she dies in the concentration camp. She was a contemporary of Heidegger. They were in the same school, same class. Both were disciples of. So she writes sometimes very strongly against Heidegger, saying that Heidegger's philosophy leads us nowhere. Heidegger's philosophy takes us into death only. But she, as a Christian and a Catholic philosopher, speaks about saying that we are not for death. Death is necessary, but we are made for life. So being is not only being for death, being is also being for life. So life is an aspect which is important in our existence. And some people, some philosophers say that Heidegger has missed that aspect in his philosophy. Another aspect is that Heidegger, he speaks about being all the time. He speaks about being all the time. So Heidegger is, Heidegger makes, a lot of philosophy about being. So some people have criticized Heidegger, saying that he is making being a sort of a god. He's making being a sort of a god. Sort of an idol, IDOL. Idol worship. You have heard about idol worship. So he is making a sort of a being as an idol worship. So he's obsessed with being. He's obsessed. And he says, the philosopher says that we can think of philosophy without being, because being puts us into very abstract concept. Being puts us into very abstract concept. Being puts us into abstract concept. Whereas we can think about being, and there are philosophers who have written being, God without being. That's one of the title of the book, God without being. We need not think of God only in being. We can think and should think about philosophy, God outside being. Also, Heidegger has criticized very much the Christian theology, particularly the Catholic Church, which I didn't mention so far. Heidegger has criticized thoroughly the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, understanding of Christianity, understanding of dogma. Heidegger has criticized. Heidegger, as I said, originally was a Catholic fellow who wanted even to become a Jesuit priest, but he could not succeed. Then slowly he withdraws from Catholicism. He embraces Protestantism. He becomes more, he leaned towards, but towards the end of his life, he said he doesn't belong to any religion as such. He did not want to hold on to any religion. He said he's beyond all religion. He wants truth beyond religion. And in that, he criticized a lot of the Catholic Church, the dogma of the Catholic Church, understanding of religion according to Catholic Church. All that he criticizes. But we will see when you come back, if there is time, we will see maybe in 1 hour lecture that his criticism about Catholic Church, the dogma of the Church, the understanding of Catholic Church, religion of in the Catholic Church, need not be very, he is very biased. He looks 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 very biased. So these are some of the critical issues, questions. So somebody make a list of the positive aspects of the philosophy of Heidegger, not so positive aspects, questions that can be addressed to the philosophy of Heidegger. Make a list of 2 columns and try to be very clear. So that would be nice. Somebody makes it and we can circulate to all. Joel, have you done yesterday's homework?
Yes, Father. I have put it in the group, Father.
You have not sent me.
I'll send you, Father.
Okay, then this fellow has sent to he has done a good job. My friend, where is he? He's, where is that fellow? Disappeared. And I told him to rework a little and he will send to all. What is that? Our Shimoga man. Where is he? Where is he? He disappeared.
I'm here, Father.
You are there. Thank God. So we may not have. We have just hardly 3 minutes more to go. Then we come back. Come back. Listen. We come back. We come back. Okay.
Today Thursday, no, Father.
Rajesh, we come back. Okay.
Yes,
we
Father.
Come back. Who is this
Thursday,
Galaxy? Galaxy. Who is this Galaxy fellow?
Prabal, Father.
Prabal. Okay. Dominic, we come back. Don't go to play basketball.
No, Father.
Okay. So this is this one. As I said, to conclude, Heidegger, as I said, the history of the life and the works of Heidegger are great, and he is a great thinker. He is a thinker which forces us to think much deeper than what we are. And the more we read about Heidegger, certainly the more we discover about the question of being. And Heidegger he has not only written about being, he has written about metaphysics, he has written about religion, philosophy of religion. Heidegger is also well known in the domain of hermeneutics, that is theory of interpretation. When we do hermeneutics, we will come back a little more on Heidegger. He is well known in the domain of hermeneutics. Heidegger also is written on ethical issues. So Heidegger's philosophy is a vast ocean. It's a vast ocean which includes. That's why he has written several books. Somebody had sent me the list of books other day. Who had sent me? I don't know. I don't remember. Somebody had sent me the list of books. I suppose you got it. Somebody had sent me the list of books written by Heidegger. I don't know who had sent me.
Glenson.
Glenson. So only Glenson is working, man. Okay. So others are not doing any work. So Stephen, are you there? You also must do some work and send me. Next time I'll ask you. And Denzil, I will ask you also do some as well. So So who will send me? Stephen, you send me that this one list of what is that the positive dimensions of the philosophy of Heidegger and not so positive dimension. Stephen,
Okay,
am I
okay.
clear? Yeah, and
Yes, sir.
you circulate to all so that everybody reads. Spend some time every day, maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes for reading. Otherwise, you will forget. Otherwise, you'll forget. So these are some of the key aspects of this one. Key aspects of this one. So I think our time is running. This one within a few seconds we are going to. So I'll come back again. I'll come back. Is it clear what I'm talking?